Today on The Dead Life, I want to talk about reading energies. Every week when I do readings, someone with abilities asks questions about interpreting what the dead are trying to say. Even people who don't think they have abilities can learn to understand the language of the dead. You have to learn how to understand your own vibe and the language of the other side, how they communicate with us, and how those two variables work together. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison. You can find me on my Facebook fan page. You can binge on my videos on YouTube, and you can see me live next month in Scottsdale, Arizona at the McCormick. For ticket information, go to AllisonDubois.com. Since next Sunday is Mother's Day, I'm drinking from my coveted Taco Bell glass, Wonder Woman glass, that any girl from the 80s knows was the coolest glass in town. My brother Michael tracked this little gem down for me, so thanks to my big bro for my favorite glass ever. Happy Mother's Day to all of you amazing women who sacrificed your mind, body, and soul to love your kiddos and raise them with love and humor. You are the women who make the world a better place. Well, Joe, thank you for making me a mom and for joining me today on The Dead Life.
Well, hi, thanks.
Yeah.
I love your Wonder Woman cup. That's fantastic.
That was the best birthday present ever. Wonder Woman.
And yeah, it's funny how even how thoughtful that gift was, even though it was simple in a way, but he knows you.
Yeah, and I don't think my brother and I are any different from other kids back then. Our parents obviously committed cardinal sins by getting rid of things that are practically irreplaceable now of ours when we were youths.
Guilty as charged. I did just upgrade our video game to 60 80s video games. So yeah. I am guilty as charged as well.
We knew we were Gen X when we were out buying new chairs for our gaming table yesterday. You see, our priorities are in line. So we're talking about abilities today, and this is such a broad category of topic to talk about. It's also very mysterious. So a lot of people just don't understand what I mean when I say the language of the dead. They actually do have their own language. So I thought we'd break it down today in sort of beginner, intermediate, and more advanced signs and ways they communicate so the listeners understand where they fall in that order, and also how they can remove some of the barriers that stand in the way from them having communication from the other side, from the people they love, especially Mother's Day and Father's Day are back to back, May and June in the U.S. And so for us, this is a time that's really happy because we're both here. You know, we have our kids. We're very fortunate. And for some people, their moms aren't here, or their dads aren't here like our dads aren't. So we understand what Father's Day has a different tone for us, you know, but we try and do something to include them in the day.
And
without overshadowing your day. Yeah.
But we'll talk about signs. My dad has his own set of signs that he sends that you don't even need to have abilities to see these signs. Well, you just have to recognize them.
And that's sort of something we're going to talk about today too. You don't have to have abilities to not be thick. I mean, there's a difference between not having abilities and then really making it hard for the other side to get through signs at all, because you question absolutely everything every day of the week that happens in your life. And if it has meaning, your soul knows if it's them. That's all you need to know. You don't need to let your head get in the way. So what signs from the other side have you felt were obvious ones?
Well, when my dad set off alarms, that's the most obvious.
That was a lot.
There are fire alarms, and
very obvious.
You don't need you don't have to have any abilities to really know that. All you need to do is recognize it, and that you look at it and you say, okay, that didn't. There's no explanation why that happened right then.
Yeah.
So, and then once you do acknowledge it, then he can give you, or whoever can give you more signs.
Well, he didn't just do it in our house. He did it when we'd be on the road, in other cities or countries where the alarms would go off at an event. Thanks, Dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the creaking floorboard. That was a really good one.
That was annoying.
That was.
I was glad you were happy, but I was really tired because we had 3 kids under 5.
And you were in college too, and so
that was a lot.
It was a busy time, but these are all signs that when you then, I took note and said, okay, these are obviously signs, and creaking floorboard, you can't explain that one away.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it wasn't just creaking; it was pacing.
It was pacing,
creaking next to your side of the bed. Thankfully, your side, not my side.
And then, and so then when I kind of understood what that felt like, well, then smaller signs, a penny or even a song coming out of the radio.
Yeah.
But then you get a feeling with it. It's like, okay, although maybe you could explain those things away, since I know what a sign is now, I accept it as a sign.
Well, and there can be nuances in even what you just mentioned. A penny. A penny can be pennies from heaven. It's usually a sign from men, usually, unless there was a woman that was money oriented, but it was dads for a long time that were working. So with bringing them through, we often will get the generations that went through the Great Depression, for instance. Mm-hmm. And so they became very miserly about their money. And, they were the dads that said, we're not air conditioning the whole neighborhood, close the refrigerator door, and they were very much into conserving electricity and such. So there's a penny in finding that, knowing that your dad was thrifty, and a difference between that and finding a penny that was from the year you were born.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that, but that would be different.
It's another level.
Yeah.
And some people don't even think to look at the date, or the date on the penny will coincide to something happy in that person's life, the person that died, his life. It could be the year they got married. Mm-hmm. It could be the year they were born. Kind of unlikely now, but you never know.
A penny would be worth something for some people, yeah.
I know, for our dads, that would have been going back a bit. So there's just different levels, which is why I wanted to talk about this, because hopefully this will answer a lot of people's questions, so I don't have to answer them individually via email.
Well, right. And that's a good point. Not everything's going to be a big alarm, or even a penny. That song on the radio can be as meaningful, and it's ephemeral, but it's still.
And that's one of the beginner level signs that I name. Beginner level signs will be numbers, songs, animals. It's that sort of thing. The dead communicate regularly in those ways. My dad shows 222 because he died the 22nd.
Do you think it got easier for the other side with Sirius because there's so many stations they get you?
Electronics make it easier for them to manipulate.
Because before they had to whisper in the DJ's ear, play the song. Yeah.
They did. Or somebody's ear who calls into the radio station to request that song.
Right. So I always kind of find that amazing too, that they can hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Sometimes you'll see a sign that will be sent for 2 different people with the same sign.
Right.
And it's like they somehow ganged up on the other side.
Right.
And sent it over. But I think that's another level on their end. But on our, I don't know. I just think that's pretty amazing. I don't even know where I'm going with that.
He digresses. Okay.
It's pretty cool. I've seen it at your events before.
Yes. So I was using the example of how my dad's 222, or your grandparents, they always send a set of ducks as a sign that they're around, and not one, but they send a pair. Have you noticed that those are very common forms of communication? I mean, over the years, seeing the readings and your own experiences.
Yeah, I think from my own experience, the ducks. We just saw a pair of ducks, husband and wife duck, on Tuesday.
You're so colorful.
And well, they were, and
must have been.
Unless he was cheating, I don't know, but no, it was. I haven't seen a duck in our neighborhood for a long time, so to see them there, it does stand out. And they were just wading in a puddle of water like ducks do, but it was I haven't had a message from my grandparents in a long time.
Right.
Now there's been a lot going on in my family with some deaths and things like that. So
Right.
it makes sense that
Yeah.
I would get a sign from them now.
So are those the parents of your Aunt Joanne who
Yeah.
passed?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was wondering why they showed up out of nowhere.
Right.
That was,
'Cause we
they haven't been around in years.
We have bunnies, we have lizards, we have geckos,
Yeah.
Quail, everything else, but not too many ducks. Well, I haven't seen a duck in this neighborhood ever,
No,
actually.
I haven't, except when we first moved
When
in,
we first moved
there
in,
was a
right.
pair in our swimming pool, which
Right.
was
Okay.
probably your grandparents too,
Sure.
welcoming us.
Yes.
Welcome.
So the question was, do I find that the ducks are signs? Yeah.
No, do you find it's a common sign that animals are sent, or numbers, or
And I think
songs?
I think animals, numbers. I see numbers frequently, but numbers are part of my business.
Right.
So I keep an eye on numbers.
Yeah.
I think birds, especially because birds are kind of flighty. So I think they're probably easier to control because they're naturally here and there and everywhere.
I think it's interesting with birds how people who pass will pick animals according to their personality. So if it was somebody kind of cool, they're like, I'm the eagle, I'm the hawk, And then if it's a sweet grandmother, they like to be the hummingbirds or their sign, or the red cardinals, which is a very common one, strangely, is somebody who stood out or felt unique, maybe misunderstood even. So, you have to read the different types of animals according to the personality of the person who died. I had a woman that I read last week, and her mom kept saying the ladybugs were from her. And ladybugs are unusual that they'll come through with that one. I always see the ladybug as sort of, if a woman chooses the ladybug, they were a strong woman that felt almost a little masculine, as ladybugs can be male.
The spotted ones are male, yeah.
Yeah, the ones that we like to look at, right? Yeah. So this woman that I was reading, bringing her mom through, who was saying the ladybugs were the sign to her, had just been in the hot springs in Arizona. I didn't know we had.
I thought they were all hot.
Right. We don't know anything different. Anyways, so she was in the hot springs, and there was a ladybug in the water, and it was sort of drowning. And so she fished it out and saved it. And she said, "Is that you, Mom?" And so when her mom came through and said she was a ladybug, it obviously made her really happy. And it was validation that her mom's around her. But it's not that the ladybug is her mother. It's that the ladybug is symbolic of her mother, and her mother's manipulating the situation to let you know that she's there. So the animals, the type of insects even, have to do with their energy as people and their personalities. So don't go out there and catch a bird thinking you're going to keep your mom with you forever. And this is why we can't resurrect the dead. Because the living would never move on. And it's important that we move forward for our own soul growth, which is why with readings, I'll read somebody maybe once a year, but I won't do it more frequently than that for the mediumship. I don't want to be a surrogate for keeping that person here and the living stuck in waiting for them. Because I know what the process is and why it happens and exists and needs to be the way it is. And I get it. So I hope all of you do too. And I hope that you do get signs and the numbers, the animals, the songs. With songs, your soul recognizes their soul in the song. So with songs, you don't need me to validate it. I mean, I have in readings, but you already know that it's from them in that moment. It's almost like you're held in a moment, just mesmerized by the song, knowing that it's from them and what the message is and why that's playing at that time. And so I'm trying to teach people to read the signs from the dead, so you don't need mediums all the time, just for the really difficult work. As far as the signs with numbers, songs, and animals, you guys know, I just have to get you there, but I know a lot of you already are there. But I love with the animals how an animal will show up after somebody passes, and I'll be reading somebody and say, your wife says you need to get a dog. And the husband will be like, I don't want a dog. And I always say, You either pick one that you like, or if she's
Right.
going to send you one, that's how it works. So for the animals that do show up out of the blue after somebody dies, they are sent to you so that you're not as lonely. So you have a reason to get out of bed. It's how the dead try to get you to feel needed and to have an outlet for your pain, is to give you that animal as a form of sort of soul therapy. So if you've experienced that, just know they pull a lot of levers on the other side. And I read a woman this week who promised her dog that she wasn't going to have any more dogs. And I said, that's not a promise your dog asked you to make.
Right.
And there's a dog out there that needs to be loved and is still here amongst the living, and you need to get that puppy. And she was actually really happy because she just wanted permission to go ahead and do that. Obviously, she has a lot of love to give.
Right.
And so I was really
wonder where
happy
that
to be
came
able to
from.
say that. You know, I think people feel like they're somehow paying a penance or homage to the person or the animal, like, I'll never love again. You know, I'll never get another
Oh,
one. I'll never
right,
have
right.
another one. You're the last one. I can't go through hurting that badly again in the loss.
Yeah. I can
So
understand that.
often that'll be the case, but you're not promising the animal. You're saying it to yourself, and you're hurting yourself by doing it. So I hope she goes out and picks out a new little puppy. I like the funny looking baby pugs and stuff.
Yeah.
But
We have a little kitten that we're watching. Little terror.
our daughter's in Paris. Sophia's in Paris, so we've got her little honey cat with us, and she's a spaz, but she's been a lot of fun, but a reminder as to why we're going to wait a while. So more immediate forms of communication from the dead would require someone who can hear or see the other side on some level. This form of dead communication often includes dreams. Sometimes interpretation of dreams has to be applied to understand the messages. In these situations, many people wonder how you can tell if it's a dream or a visit. Come on, Joe, you've heard me say it enough. How do you know if it's a dream or a visit?
You can just tell. Is this a trick question? I don't know. Because a dream is a dream, like lollipops and butterflies, and a visit is real. Like, you can tell it's.
How can you tell?
See, this is why I am not the medium.
Because your soul recognizes their soul.
Oh, okay.
It's a soul level issue. When you're having a dream about them, you don't wake up angry that you were woken up out of the dream, that you were pulled away from them. When you wake up and all you want to do is go back to sleep to be with them again because they were holding your hand or giving you a kiss, or they were just there, and it hurts to be awake. It hurts and you want to go back to sleep. You were just there and you know you were just there. It's like Somewhere in Time and the penny, and he's holding the penny and he's like
come
trying
back
to
to
go
me,
back, come back to me. So
that's
that's a visit.
That's why you're not only a medium but also an author, because you have such a grasp on the English language.
Thanks.
And yeah, I've had not too many, but I've had maybe a few in my lifetime dreams where your soul recognizes that other being is the person that's visiting you.
Well, so far,
and you don't want to.
But everybody we've lost, it went in the order that is expected. The
right, older people.
Yeah,
right.
The pain comes from if I die, or if God forbid anything happened to the kids. That's the jagged stuff. That's
right.
the real work.
Right.
So it resonates in your soul, Joe, would be the answer. Ding, 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 ding. Correct. Okay. So that's more of the intermediate form when it comes through in the dreams that people have. The reason they come through in dreams is because you're more accessible. We are our own worst enemy, and our mind gets in the way of them being able to communicate. And when you go to sleep at night and you're thinking about how they died, or them being sick, or the suffering that they go through, and that's the last thing you think about, and then you say, gee, why don't I get any signs when I'm asleep? Well, because you just put a wall up by doing that. You have to put up a picture of them happy or at a younger age. and say, I'm ready for a visit, and go to sleep. And you keep doing that until they're able to access you. It's not that they're not there. It's that you act as the block between the living and the dead. And I know we don't want to hear that because we want it to be in someone else's hands. Fix it. You do it. Get me there, which is why people come to mediums often, because we can bypass a wall. We are a mediator. That's all we are between the living and the dead. So I'm telling you, as a medium, the only way that they can access you is if you get out of your own way. And that involves you feeling happy more often when you think about them than you do sad. If all they make you feel is pain, they will pull their energy back and stop coming around because they don't want to get you stuck in the moment they died. And I get why the living hold on to that too. I completely understand. We hold on to the moment of death because it's the last thing that tethers us to them. So we hold on for dear life to the moment of death and trying to understand it because it's the last time they had a heartbeat. It's the last time they were here. And I get that. But you have to learn how to let go of that line and hold on to their soul. Because once you make the soul connection with them, holding on to the death will seem silly to you. Holding on to the soul connection with them becomes life. It becomes your way of communicating with them, but also connecting with the living. Because when you learn to hold on to the soul of the dead, it makes it so easy to understand the living and feel their energy. Now, it makes it hard to be around the living because some people are a little, haven't been here before,
Right.
or it's like, it can be, no volume control or.
Well, we were at a comedy club.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, that was something.
That's why they call them spirits that you drink.
Oh my God. I swear some of those people must have worked in factories that were really noisy. I was just like, oh, come on, volume control. Anyways, I guess that would be a good example. So we're in a comedy club. There's obnoxious people in comedy clubs. It's just they seem to go hand in hand. Yeah. There's some people that are just having a good time, and then there's going to always be the ones that are hecklers or more obnoxious and loud. They're ordering their buckets of beers. So that's sort of what the other side can be like as well, in that some of them are really loud. Now, on the other side, the really loud ones, they get heard, but that's the same in life too.
Right.
But after a while, if you don't listen to what they're saying, they will go away. And that's the same with the living people that are talking to you and screaming at you. After a while, they're going to get tired of trying to get your attention. If you don't hear 'em, sure. So when you go to bed, a lot of smiles, a lot of good memories. Dad, I'm ready for a visit. Mom, I'm ready for a visit. Go to sleep and let them in, especially around Mother's Day and Father's Day. They're always with us on those days. They get so excited. They're like, what are we doing this year? They want to do the same things that made them happy before. So if you're missing your mom or dad at this time of year, Dad would want a barbecue and all the family around and his wife to make her famous potato salad or something. And the women, well, I'm going to be an easy one because, mini eclairs and champagne go a long way.
I was going to say, we have our traditions and they're great, but they're actually pretty standard traditions, like mini eclairs,
lady finger sandwiches.
And, what are the, now I'm missing all the names of them. They all have special names, don't they? Each sandwich? I have
egg salad, ladyfingers, cucumber cream cheese, ladyfingers, which my grandma made, so I make those for her. And then we get the mini eclairs and the macarons and the chocolate dipped strawberries and pomegranate champagne cocktails, and we watch chick flicks. Yay! Best day ever. So my girls love it. They love it.
Well, yeah.
So do something for your parents that they enjoyed while they were alive, or watch their favorite movie. They're always here for it. They're like, I'd love that. Let's do that. A more advanced form of communication involves someone with abilities who can really hear them clearly and straight up have a conversation with the dead. Even when you have an ability that strong, you have to have established borders and boundaries with the dead. You need a very strong mind, or the other side will overwhelm you, and that can ruin your life and render your abilities useless. Today, Sorry. The dead life will give, you're going to have to cut this part out.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, that was right. Okay. The dead will give names, foods they like, streets they lived on, or cities they lived in. I brought through a woman once who kept showing me a sofa from the early 60s, but my grandmother called furniture like that a Davenport. The dead knew my vocabulary. So they showed me an image. That would trigger me to say Davenport, and that's the city the woman was from. A medium doesn't always know why a piece of information is important. The client does. This is why we have to be careful not to edit our information out of insecurities, thinking that something random couldn't be important. So I find this to be essential in readings, is that they will trigger words that they, with visuals for us by showing us things. Sometimes they'll write the word out in our mind, but obviously it's going to be often with visuals because they're playing charades with us. It's what they do. If you're able to see names in your mind and not dismiss them, then that can be really helpful. If you can distinguish a first name from a middle name or a last name, that's even better. If you want to know how to do that, if you get a name and it feels removed, you almost feel like it's being rolled back or put in another order. That's how the other side communicates a middle name. That's their way of saying this name doesn't come first, but it's important. And I get that a lot in readings I do, because since I already know my client's first name, the dead often will give me their middle name so that they know that this is their mom, and that's something only their mom would know, that I wouldn't know that right. Sort of thing. I even had an occasion where I got the name John, and I was very comfortable in the reading on that particular day, and felt like playing with the dead. Sometimes I feel more playful than others. And they showed me the word John, and the dead kept sort of, pulling the word like taffy, like it was longer. And they kept elongating it. And I was like, longer than John? There's a lot of options there. Right. And so then the dead showed me a picture of my great-grandfather, whose last name was Johnson. And I said, is their last name Johnson? And she said, yes. And I was like, great. So that's how they get us there.
That's a high five, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that. But that's awesome. That's how they communicate, though. That's their language. And if you can speak their language, you can get better at deciphering it.
I don't know if you know this. I've been in the room when you've done readings.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, I know you know that. But
this I know.
You bring up the living's energy to match the person you're connecting with. And sometimes, and it's very rare, but it's so noticeable because I don't have the abilities, but you'll be like, I'll look over and I'll see your shoe and I'll be like, well, why am I looking at her shoe? I've seen her shoe a million times. And then you'll say in the reading, his shoes were really important. Do you have the shoe? And that'll be the key.
Yeah.
And it's like, I kind of pick up that, it was just like overflow. Like you had so much energy, just like some of it washed over towards me or something. But I'll say it's a definite different sensation when your attention is drawn to something for no good reason. And
that's a really good share on your part for you to get that.
Yeah. And it's not something that happens normally, but when I'm around you in a reading, then it'll occasionally happen.
Well, at the events, there's so much energy in the room because there's so many people wanting to hear from deceased loved ones. And people get really quiet, and there's just this concentration going on in the room. So I think I just think together it makes everything pop. Yeah, the thoughts, the words, all of that. I think you're actually very intuitive. When we first met, you were not at all. But through the years and you being a part of it and experiencing it and having daughters who have their own abilities, you've really grasped it. And I think when people are around it all the time, it makes them more open. So it's why kids who are raised around tarot or, with a psychic aunt or a mom who's a medium, they tend to open up earlier than others would because they know what's going on.
And I think, like you said, it at your events, it attracts a lot of energy. A lot of people focused on the same thing will make it easier.
Right.
When you had, early on, when you did the group sessions, it would be, in a sense, a little easier because you had all these people kind of focusing their energy and sort of crutching everybody else along. But
you mean the circles? The psychic circles? I love the psychic circles. I miss those. A great way to practice.
Right. And we're developing the online ones. I think there's definitely, from my perspective, there's something to that the having more energy there just makes it a little more accessible. And
it's like-minded people. It's all believers. So when you're around all believers, it's great. And I think a lot of people that have abilities, but they're not used to being around other people with them. It's why the psychic circles were so great, to be able to get together once a month and have like a dozen of you in a circle, pulling impressions off of each other, learning how to read each other, and then inviting friends the next time. So there's fresh energy for everybody to read. And people just enjoy it so much. But once you're around people with abilities, when you've not gotten to be around them, it's like a breath of fresh air. And I think it's, and then you can't go back to the way it was before and be around all people who are just thick and don't understand it. And some people want to understand it. So I don't see them as thick because they're trying to learn or they're open to it. Right. But I mean, it was really hard being at the aerospace Christmas parties and stuff, in the beginning of our relationship.
I bet,
and sitting there, and I just had no connection with anybody there. So when I got to be around my kind, it was just incredible.
Well, and that's what went through my mind. Back to that shoe situation, was that you do that naturally on your own, without anybody else around, and certainly more clearly, but it opened my mind to like, wow, what must that be like? Well, I don't even know.
And there's nuances to shoes even, so that's interesting that you'd bring it up. So. You got the shoes, you were feeling the shoes, something around the person's shoes. When they show them in the closet, you say, do you still have shoes in your closet with your things? Or if you pick up on blazers, because they'll make me feel like their jacket's still in the closet with their wife's things. And they'll say, oh, no, I got rid of his things. But yeah, I do have his jacket in my closet with my things. And I'm like, okay, that's what I said. But, they get it. And, or you can feel that they want you to give that jacket to, they'll show like a young man in my head, which to me is grandson. I'm like, he wants the grandson to have the jacket. And then sometimes they'll say, which grandson? I'm like, oh my God, can you just ask it? No, I'm just kidding. So I'll ask the first name of each of the grandsons and then write messages for each grandson. But then that tells me which grandson he wants to have the jacket. So what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just saying you took it like 15 levels past what I was talking about.
Sorry.
You had some Chuck Taylors on there.
I did not mean to hijack it. Go ahead.
No. I'm not hijacking. I'm just saying, like I was talking about maybe something at this level, and
well, I'm just saying there's different nuances to the feeling you're getting with what you're seeing. And if you'd had time and coaching, you'd know how to get there too.
I totally get it.
Because you're actually more intuitive than you give yourself credit for, And as are our girls, which our youngest is aware of it though. And she's a lucky cricket for sure.
She is. Yeah.
Okay. So, another thing, if you don't have that word in your vocabulary, they can try and get as close to the word as possible, sort of like John to Johnson for me, where I was able to figure that out. But maybe a layman on the street wouldn't expel that kind of energy trying to figure it out. It's something you have to practice. So for all of you out there that have some abilities or want to be open to receiving more gifts from the other side, more abilities, psychic circles, and you don't have to use the word psychic. I mean, I get it. I don't like the word either. Clairvoyant doesn't always do it for me either. I'm like, come up with something new. I don't know. Just a sixth sense circle. How's that? A sixth sense circle. That'll do. Put together a group and just start reading people. We do this with Dead University, and I tell my students, you can't learn how to be stronger and better if you're not doing the work. You have to do the work. You're just not going to be laying in bed and somebody comes up with a magic wand and bestows a gift upon you. It's something that was there all along, Dorothy. The ruby slippers were always there. You just have to know what to do with those slippers. And I'm trying to tell you that this is what you do. So if you want to connect with them, you think good thoughts before you go to bed, you ask them for a visit, and you go to sleep. And you have faith that they're going to connect with you. Do not try and control the situation. Give up control. I always say to my clients, the dead are the boss. I am a secretary and you're the magic. You're why they come through. So I relinquish control in a reading to the dead. That's something the living has to do in order to understand their language. I hope this helped some people to try and understand communication with the other side a little bit better. This also goes for children. Children are very open books. They are very sensitive. When adults scream or slam our hand on a table, things like that, it shakes them to the core. They're very sensitive little beings that are just trying to navigate their way in this world. So be patient with them. If I had $1 for every time I had a client who was worried their child's autistic or on the spectrum and their kid just has abilities, just don't label them. Don't be quick to label the kids. Let them become who they are. They're going to be all right. Just have faith, talk to the other side, and tell the teacher that your child's a visual learner and you just have to show them how to do it and they can do it. So a lot of children with abilities are just visual because they're going to learn how to read signs from the dead. That's part of how their brain's set up to work. So it's how it works in a classroom for them too. They're visual. And I don't think the living understand them. It drives me nuts. So hopefully there's some teachers out there listening that'll keep this in mind the next time they have those kids in their class and recognize that they're actually very gifted little beings. So thank you for being my partner in crime today, Joe. Happy Mother's Day to all of my sister friends out there. And next week on The Dead Life, you'll hear from my resident astrologer, Tom McMullen, with a new podcast episode in our Karma series. I'm Allison Dubois. Thank you for tuning into The Dead Life. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.